If you accidentally got caught on a crane hook and the crane controller stopped working, how could you safely get back to the ground? The firefighters observed the situation for a moment and decided to place a ladder truck against the crane arm, then climb across the truss and rescue the worker from the hanging cable. Although it sounds dangerous, it was actually not safe at all. But it might just work. The two firefighters climbed onto the crane arm and slowly moved closer along the truss. They stayed extremely focused, because one wrong step and things could go very badly. After safely reaching above the hanging cable, the firefighter reassured the trapped worker while putting on his gear and securing the ropes.
Hang in there, buddy! Okay!
After everything was ready, the firefighter took a deep breath and jumped down. The firefighters on the ground controlled the rope as it was lowered.
Hold there, Cruz! Hey, don't move. I'll do all the work. I ain't moving. All right.
The firefighter pulled out a safety rope, wrapped it tightly around the worker's body, and connected it to himself with a carabiner.
All right, take us down. Go ahead, Cruz!
The ground team began lowering the rope, but the firefighter on the hook noticed the worker was still holding onto the hook tightly in fear. After all, he had never received rescue training, so his fear was understandable. With the firefighter's encouragement, he chose to trust him and slowly let go. The two of them began descending slowly. The firefighter kept making a winding motion with his right hand. As long as he continued the signal, the team on the ground would keep lowering the rope until they reached safety. It was truly a thrilling, high-altitude rescue. A woman was strangled by a zip line around her neck. She struggled desperately, opening her mouth wide to breathe and fighting with her arms and legs to break free. But the rope only tightened more and more. She was moments away from losing consciousness. The firefighters couldn't waste any more time and decided to use the zip line system at the scene for the rescue. They quickly prepared the equipment, including pulleys, hooks, and straps. One firefighter climbed up to the truss and secured the anchor point before throwing down the rope bag. His teammates worked together and quickly secured the second anchor point. A simple zip line rescue system was ready. The firefighters slowly moved closer to the woman along the zip line. Her movements became weaker and weaker, and she was almost completely unconscious from the pressure around her neck. The paramedic below watched anxiously with a serious expression.
All right, Cruz, about 10 more feet. Hurry! Faster! Oh, yeah!
After stabilizing himself, he quickly pulled out a knife, cut the rope around the woman's neck, then attached a hook to her body and signaled his teammates to continue lowering the rope. As soon as they reached the ground, they placed the woman onto a stretcher. She was still unconscious, with a rapid but weak pulse. Luckily, after receiving oxygen, her blood oxygen level quickly recovered, and she finally woke up. They immediately rushed her onto the ambulance and headed to the hospital. A speedboat lost control and went into a wild runaway state. From a distance, it looked like the driver had passed out, but because his foot was still pressing on the throttle, the boat was speeding out of control through the river, and it could hit the riverbank at any moment, causing a deadly crash. Firefighters boarded a marine patrol boat and decided to jump onto the runaway boat from the starboard side to rescue him. But jumping between boats sounds easier than it is. They had to control the speed and time the jump perfectly. One single bump could cause him to miss the boat and fall into the water. The patrol boat circled around, chasing the speeding boat and slowly getting closer. He watched carefully while telling the driver to keep steady and avoid sudden movements. When the two boats were almost parallel, it was the perfect moment to board. He was already standing on the starboard side.
On my count! 1, 2, 3.
With one leap, he grabbed the back of the boat tightly with both hands, barely avoiding being thrown into the water by the centrifugal force. The teammates on shore watched nervously. He quickly climbed into the cockpit, moved the unconscious driver aside, and took control of the speedboat, slowly bringing it back to shore. Afterwards, paramedics found that the driver didn't have a heart attack. He'd actually passed out due to low blood sugar. Looks like you should remember to eat before driving a boat. A 5-story building caught fire, and only one person managed to escape. Firefighters quickly helped the woman up and placed her onto a stretcher. The chief ordered the water tanker to contain the flames while all firefighters entered the first floor to search for victims.
Primary search, nothing goes unchecked. Herman, you got Dawson.
Dawson, stay back.
But the water from one fire truck was not enough. Before the tanker ran out, they had to connect another hose from a nearby fire hydrant. At that moment, the woman who escaped regained consciousness, and one sentence shocked the firefighters.
There are 15 more.
Chief, we got 15 more in the basement.
The chief immediately changed the rescue plan. But when it rains, it pours. The nearby fire hydrants were completely useless. The firefighters carried their hoses to farther hydrants, but none of them worked.
So if people are dying from this $5 part?
The situation became more urgent. The fire truck was about to run out of water. The chief ordered everyone to evacuate first. At the critical moment, one firefighter noticed a gate not far away. She broke the glass and entered the building, quickly finding a working fire hydrant. Under everyone's hopeful eyes, the life-saving water supply was finally connected. The firefighters continued the rescue, and more people were brought out alive. At the same time, they discovered another problem. The basement door was locked from the inside. The first girl who escaped had squeezed through the narrow gap because of her slim body, then came out to warn everyone.
Basement door was chained shut. First girl must have squeezed out to warn everyone.
Trafficking?
I'm thinking sweatshop.
Hey, Herman. We need all hands.
Dawson, mask up. You're coming in. Keep one hand on the wall at all times. Stay glued to me. You conserve your air. You got it?
Copy. At that moment, the girl suddenly tilted her head to one side. Despite the firefighters' emergency treatment, there was nothing they could do.
Today's fire was a sweatshop operation.
The capitalists were truly evil. The only comfort was that the girl used her life to give 15 people a chance to survive. Firefighting is getting this competitive too. 2 fire engines began speeding on the road while racing to a rescue call. As expected, something went wrong. The firefighters who were originally heading to a fire had to reroute and respond to a traffic collision instead. They were all stunned by what they saw. They climbed onto the overturned fire truck to assess the situation. Fortunately, only one firefighter suffered serious eye injuries, while the rest were mostly fine. Driver Cruz eventually woke up, still completely confused, probably wondering who he was and where he was. His colleagues opened the side door of the overturned vehicle, and the lightly injured firefighters climbed out on their own before immediately joining the rescue efforts. Meanwhile, the other ladder truck was severely damaged. The driver was unconscious, in critical condition, with one leg trapped and barely a detectable pulse. A firefighter in the back suffered an open leg fracture and would likely need a long recovery. The fire chief rushed to the scene and asked Cruz what caused the crash, but he was still dazed and couldn't remember anything, so he was taken for medical evaluation. They continued working to free the trapped firefighters and eventually managed to open the damaged door. They secured the injured with neck braces and carefully placed them onto stretchers. Seeing his teammate's condition, the firefighter angrily shouted,
You son of a bitch! You did this!
But this was clearly not the time for arguments. Since there were no cameras at the intersection, the cause of the crash remained under investigation. Soon, the chief obtained surveillance footage from a nearby intersection. It showed Cruz running a red light.
We were on our way to a fire. If we made a controlled stop at every light, there would
Then Molina would be back at his firehouse instead of on life support.
Cruz, you should talk to your union rep before you say another word.
He had no way to defend himself. If the victims didn't survive, Cruz could face a manslaughter charge. Just as things looked grim, the injured firefighter woke up 2 days later and stated that it was actually their captain's order.
A signal. Molina understood to mean beat 81 to the scene. Come hell or high water.
The truth was revealed. Cruz was cleared of responsibility. He finally breathed a sigh of relief. So, what do you think about fire trucks running red lights while responding to emergencies?